Hello there, kia ora, I'm Paul, and this is this week's The News. Pope Francis, the leader of the Catholic Church, seen here as Jorge Mario Bergoglio, passed away this week at the Vatican, aged 88. World leaders have paid tribute to the late pontiff, including Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, seen here showing British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer how to do blue steel. The self-styled king of TikTok, who's wealthy and sorted and entitled to certain entitlements, that leads a government that has worsened the cost of living, created the worst economic recession since the 90s, fired thousands of civil servants, led to one of the largest brain drains on record, and created new records for numbers of people on benefits and sanctions for those people on those benefits, told reporters that Pope Francis was someone he looked up to, saying, quote, "I personally think, he's the person I admired. Tremendously great compassion, tremendous humbleness and humility, massive commitment to the vulnerable, and just well connected with everyday people." Acting Prime Minister Winston Peters, seen here trying to measure a woman's face while she sleeps, has confirmed his party has decided that the cookers that they want to appeal to are the ones who think trans people aren't worth the effort of being treated like humans, after it was revealed that he'd chosen to withdraw a bill from the biscuit tin of democracy. The removed bill would require people using bathrooms that were assigned to them based on the sex that they were assigned at birth, and would also stop the Director General of Health from adding fluoride to water supplies, so that he could add one that legally defines what a man is based on biological assignment of sex at birth. The bill, widely touted as a waste of time that only ACT have hinted that they would support, is considered to be an attack on the trans community by many. Said a spokesperson for the Deputy Prime Minister's office, "We just wanted to shake things up before we walk away and force a snap election, and trans people always seem like an easy minority for us to vilify." Acting Prime Minister Winston Peters, seen here pondering if being Deputy Prime Minister for half of the last 10 years somehow makes him one of the Māori elite he's always being told to be mean to by his advisors on Twitter, has come under fire for threatening funding of Radio New Zealand for asking questions he didn't like, in a repeat of last year's event where David Seymour threatened funding for TVNZ for asking questions that he didn't like. On RNZ, after listening to Peters claim Green Party co-leader Chloe Swarbrick was a groomer, Coran Dan asked common sense questions about how Peters would police his planned gender definition bill, and was called woke for daring to ask in a follow-up Twitter rant from the 80-year-old. When asked if he would step in, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, seen here realising maybe he doesn't know the back of his hands like the back of his hands, said, "What I'm saying to you is these comments from Peters are unsurprising. He's about as predictable as the plot of those awesome Transformers movies the 17th time that you've watched them. It causes harm to people, it breaches the Cabinet Code of Conduct, and it's worrying. So no, I won't be taking any actions on the issue." Workplace Relations Minister Brooke Van Velden, seen here remembering that time when ACT and New Zealand First Party voters joined together to occupy the grounds of Parliament and call for the execution of MPs, has come under fire after it was revealed that she changed a law that automatically allows employees working for more than 30 days to join a union without any consultation with unions or employers. Said Van Velden, "Why would we talk to people involved about giving them more power when it comes to annoying things like bargaining and work conditions? That sounds like the nanny state to me." Police Minister Mark Mitchell, seen here having stepped on a Lego, has issued an apology to Te Pāti Māori MP Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark after a video was shared on his account claiming that she was of Chinese and yellow Viking heritage. Mitchell has blamed staffers for the incident, saying, "What my staffers are looking at on my account is none of my business, and should in no way be seen as a reflection of the sort of actions and behaviours I condone, just because it's my account, the people I hired, or the actions that I clearly turned a blind eye to." The Coalition's much-lauded ECE rebate scheme has had its parameters refined in an action commonly known as trying to cover their asses. Only 259 families have received the full rebate amount, with 56,000 families having accessed the scheme, which is half the initial estimate of who would be eligible. So Nicola Willis, seen here laughing at a pensioner asking for more financial help to make ends meet, now says the estimate of how many would be eligible was wrong, after she said IRD made it up. The numbers were completely based on a lack of data. Said Willis, "Yep, pulled the number out of thin air, packaged it as being a big win for low and middle income earners, the squeezed middle, let the press run with it unchallenged, marketed it with no real basis in data, and now we're moving the goalposts in how to measure success to claim it as a win, because that's how you get back on track." Because of the low amount of families accessing the full amount of rebates in the Family Boost scheme, the Council of Trade Unions is estimating that the total number of families getting the full $252 fortnightly tax break, which at one stage Nicola Willis, seen here showing how many families she actually expected to get the full benefits of all of National's tax package, initially claimed would be 21,000 families. The CTU believes the number of people being able to access the full extent of the tax changes that National campaigned on in 2023 to be fewer than 50 across the entire country. Said Finance Minister Nicola Willis, "I reject that. Just because the CTU got it right about ferry cost blowouts, the impacts of borrowing for tax cuts, and the lower number of people being eligible than we and the media said when the policy was first announced, I just don't think they're credible." Regulation Minister David Seymour, seen here with the person who used his connections to David Seymour to extend the name suppression process in a case about child sexual assault, this week announced proposed changes to licensing rules for early child education facilities. These changes include removing the curriculum criteria for teaching staff to acknowledge and reflect on the unique place of Māori as tangata whenua within the system, and respecting the right and supporting children to be confident in their own culture, as well as removing safety features on warm water supply so children don't get burned, and removing the need from this Act to provide adult-suitable toilets since that is still covered under the Building Act. Said Seymour, when announcing the changes, "I'm sure you can all agree that when it comes to the safety of young people, our party, the party that no longer has a convicted sex offender, Tim Jargo as president, is the one to trust. And if you have follow-up questions about that comment, please refer to my employment lawyer." Tracking numbers from MSD released last weekend have shown a sharp increase in the number of people requiring the help of benefits to almost cover the cost of being alive. The time people needing help lasting longer than before, as well as a significant increase in the number of people facing benefit sanctions. People receiving job seeker support was up 12% on 2024, and the number of sanctions increased 80% from last year, while emergency housing special needs grants being provided fell 82%. Said Social Development Minister Louise Upston, seen here in the new accommodation option MSD is telling beneficiaries to consider, just because we as a government created the worst recession since the 90s, drove the increase in inflation, fired tens of thousands of people from government roles, drove people overseas to find a way to survive, and forced more people into poverty with below inflation rates increases in benefits and minimum wage, while paying for tax cuts for landlords and tobacco companies, does not mean that we are obligated to look after anyone with our social welfare safety net that hasn't just gone and got another job. And finally, a team at the University of Cambridge say that they've detected signs of molecules in the atmosphere of a distant exoplanet that may indicate a biosignature. The planet, currently named K1-18b, is about 8 times the mass of Earth, but only 2.5 times the size, and circles a red sun. The scientists who made this discovery were quick to point out that what they discovered was a chemical known as dimethyl sulfide, which here on Earth is only known to be created by marine algae. By using the James Webb Telescope to split the light spectrum that passes through the exoplanet's atmosphere while it passes the sun. Said one scientist, "This is not a definitive sign of life on another planet, and certainly not a sign of intelligent life there. It's hard enough to find intelligent life on this planet, let alone one that's 124 light years away from us." And that is this week's The News. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along and deal with these guys for the rest of the year.